Right, okay, so Julia, thank you so much for having me yet again.
Yeah, my husband's going to start worrying about it, turning up.
So, since we last spoke, we've obviously had a huge amount of development in the Brexit.
Yeah, it's all going terribly well. Yes.
So, how's it going? How do you think Brexit's going? Just very simple.
I have to say, about a weekend ago, I think I was virtually in tears on the Friday night when we heard about the Chequers agreement, or disagreement as it's now become known, and this Brexit white paper and what was being planned. And I couldn't believe my ears, because I just feel, I think like so many Leave voters, just so betrayed. I think so many of us put our trust in the Theresa May. I know people who've never voted Tory in their lives, but trusted that she would deliver on Brexit, even though she wasn't a Eurosceptic, even though she hadn't voted Leave, but that she sort of was taking it on as someone who's neutral between the two sides, and she was going to drive it forward. All those speeches, Lancaster House, Mansion House, Florence, all these times she said the red lines. I thought, she's not going to renege on those. And she has, and I'm kind of blown away, because I feel like a fool that I've trusted her.
So how does it make you feel as a Brexiteer, someone who's wanted this for so long, that you feel sort of betrayed? What does that make you feel like?
I feel betrayed. I genuinely feel upset, but I also feel very angry, and I think a lot of Leave voters do. I think a lot of Remain voters do, or Relievers, I think they're known. The people who voted Remain but accept the outcome of a democratic decision and say, well, OK, let's make the best of it. Whatever side you're on, unless you're a full-on, full-blown Andrew Adonis, Nick Clegg, Tony Blair, Ramona, you want Britain to get a good deal. And this is literally the worst of all possible worlds that Theresa May is doing. I feel betrayed by her incompetence, by the deceit, and by what I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm beginning to get to the point where, is this actually a conspiracy to stop this happening? Because it's so bad, it's almost laughable. But I say, I don't know whether to cry, to laugh, or frankly grab my pitchfork and head to Parliament. But I think there are a lot of Leave voters that are in that sort of territory. Because I do think that it's one thing to betray a particular vote or a mandate in a manifesto. It's another thing to betray, the biggest single vote for anything in the British public's history, and to do it so blatantly. And so unnecessarily. I really think we are undermining the basis of our actual democracy. We're undermining our trust in the idea that you can get change through the ballot box, and that you don't need to riot on the streets, you don't need to arm yourself, you don't need to do anything violent. We discuss things, we debate things, we have a vote, and then we enact that vote. Well, it seems we don't.
Can you just explain exactly why you feel betrayed? Because Michael Gove, lots of other cabinet ministers think that this deal is proper Brexit, and Theresa May would argue that it is a real Brexit, and that's the whole basis of her argument, and why so many cabinet ministers didn't resign.
Well, that's it. It was really confusing on the Friday night, wasn't it? I think for a lot of Leavers. Well, Michael Gove, he's an arch Brexit, he's accepted it, and we thought, David Davis and Boris Johnson had accepted it as well, and others. And you just think, well, it must be okay. I mean, Douglas Carswell, of course, who defected to UKIP, seems to think this is Brexit. It's not what. And again, I accept that different Leave voters voted for different reasons, and they may have voted for different things. But so did Remain voters as well. I mean, people vote for many variety of reasons. But on the Prime Minister's her own version of Brexit, her Brexit means Brexit, on her own red, white and blue Brexit, the terms she herself has laid out in set piece after set piece speech. So not a comment she made offhand, off the cuff on Mar, but something that she and her advisors have sat down and written and edited and thought about and made a speech about. Her own red lines she's breached when it comes to just simple things like being able to get free trade deals. The whole leading point of Brexit was for us to govern ourselves and be able to make our own international trade treaties. Well, as we've heard from Donald Trump on his visit to the UK, he's already said, and the ambassador from the United States has already said, well, we can't do a free trade deal with you if we can't have a free trade deal in agriculture and other goods. If it's just going to be services, it's not in our interest. Why would we do it? So she's reneged on that, which is a key part of things. The European Court of Justice, she says, briefing after briefing from Number 10 says, we're not going to be under the auspices of the European Court of Justice. No, if there's a dispute, it's going to go to the European Court of Justice. Who do you think they're going to rule in favour of? And we're going to have to take into account their rules. The idea that we're going to be splitting from the EU and that we're going to have full alignment for years, unless we decide to change on issues like agricultural goods and others, and then we get punished if we decide to change. That's not the sort of freedom we're looking at. And also freedom of movement. I'm very happy for visa-free travel for tourists and business people, absolutely. But no, if you're a low-skilled worker, I don't want you coming to this country to seek out work, which, frankly, we've got plenty of Brits to do. So on all these counts, on all the things that people voted for, whether it's immigration or sovereignty or just national democratic accountability, we haven't got any of those things. So what's the point of Brexit? At this point, we may as well remain.
Do you think it would be better to remain in the EU than have this deal?
No, okay, I voted for Brexit because I know Britain's going to be better off medium to long term. I think short term as well, but yeah, uncertainty is never good for an economy. So I have to accept that. But I think being out of this sort of failing bureaucratic political union is definitely a good deal for us. So and there is no point on any day, in any hour of any year, that it would be better to be part of this bureaucratic, corrupt club rather than being out on our own as a proud sovereign nation. But I think this is where conspiracy theory comes in, which is, was the idea to get such a soft, pointless Brexit, and I would say this isn't even soft Brexit, this is soft Remain, that it was going to be so bad, and we were going to be pummeled down by Labour, by the Remoaners on all sides, that we'd end up with this rubbish deal, if there is a deal, and at which point we'd say, do you know what, given a choice, we may as well stay in, rather than being a vassal state, we'll stay in and still have a seat at the table. But that's not what the British people voted for. And then that prompts people saying, well, we should have a second referendum. No, you should deliver what the people voted for. And if we want to have another referendum in a few years' time after we've left, okay, well, that's a decision that politicians can offer to the British people at the next election and can seek a mandate for. But there is no mandate for a second referendum. So we need to deliver what the people voted for. And the people did not vote for half in and half out. They voted out.
So you said we become a vassal state with this Chequers deal, half in, half out. But I'm just going to repeat the last question just to make it absolutely clear. If we had to go for this Chequers deal, would you prefer that deal rather than staying in the EU? Because when we're in the EU, we have some say over the rules, and that's the argument, isn't it? Whereas if we have this Chequers deal, we won't have any say.
Well, we're having less and less say over the rules, so there's less and less that is done by unanimity. A lot of it's qualified majority voting, and a lot of that involves stitch-ups. And so, look, it's absolutely clear to me, a no-deal Brexit is better than staying in the EU. Staying in the EU on any basis is a bad deal.
Okay.
But a bad deal is definitely worse than no deal. And the only reason we're going to have a bad deal is because I think the Remoaners have undermined Theresa May. She spent so much of her time in the last couple of years fighting, the home front. Do you think if people had come together, I'd have loved a government of national unity from Lib Dems and Labour and throw in Nigel Farage, why not? But I would have liked there to be, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it as a nation. We're going to respect that democratic vote. That would have been something to see. And that unity would have pushed, I think, the EU to give us a better deal. Bearing in mind, we haven't got a deal on the table. What we're discussing is the deal that Theresa May is trying to get past her own Tory party MPs, let alone her own cabinet. Let alone her own voters, Tory voters. We haven't even put this deal to the EU yet. I've got to be honest with you, if I were them, I'd still throw it back and say, we're going to offer you less. We are asking for so little, and we're going to get even less. The British people will not put up with it. Tory voters aren't going to put up with it, certainly. They're already sending their membership cards back in droves. I think that the Tory party is going to be punished at the next election, whenever it is, for betraying the British people on Brexit. And I say to that, good, they deserve to be.
Would you rather have a Corbyn government then?
I would rather have any government that hadn't betrayed the public. I voted Labour, Lib Dem, UKIP, Tory. I was raised in a Labour voting family. I've got relatives who've never voted anything but Labour all their life. I don't think that Corbyn would be a good Prime Minister. I think he'd be an absolute disaster for this country economically. I think anyone in the city worried about Brexit in terms of economic problems, think again when you see Corbyn. Not delivering on Brexit will almost guarantee a Corbyn government, because that protest vote, the Tory voters will just stay at home, or they'll vote for Jeremy Corbyn just to punish Theresa May. And my view is, if that is the price to be paid for not delivering on that pact that we have between politicians and voters, which is that you do what we say, you're not in charge, we're in charge, the voters, so be it.
Obviously we're getting a slightly hypothetical here, but
I mean, I don't think it is hypothetical.
But if Corbyn got into government, in the sense, he would betray Brexit even more, surely, because
he's actually. Well, this is the weird thing. Of course, we've got a Remainer leading a Eurosceptic party in the Tories, and we've got a Eurosceptic leading a Remain party in Labour.
Yeah.
Look, most of the shadow cabinet, most of the backbenchers in Labour are desperate to try and stop Brexit. And they would probably they're
so
opposed.
If they were in government, then
they're in government. If Jeremy Corbyn's in charge, bearing in mind those all those MPs, they stood on a mandate, also they stood on a manifesto that supported implementing the Brexit vote. So again, they're being hypocritical as well. No, I just think that politicians need to know. I mean, the whole point of Brexit is to have accountable politicians. That's the whole point. And so when we've got, for instance, we saw from the NATO summit this week, Jean-Claude Juncker, the European Commission President, smashed out of his skull, sciatica, my backside, smashed out of his skull. But you could see from the reactions of the other leaders that there's
used to it.
Jean-Claude's been out the booze again, barely able to walk, teetering around. I mean, absolutely humiliating and embarrassing. We're paying his six-figure salary and his six-figure it's a six-figure pension as well. And we'll vote him out. Oh, we can't vote him out. It's unaccountable. Unelected politicians. The whole point of leaving the EU was that I want politicians to be accountable to me. I want to know I can help, along with other voters, send that removal van to number 10. And we need to send that removal van to number 10. And if the Tories don't deliver on Brexit, if Theresa May is allowed to stay in power by those Tory MPs who wanted Brexit, every even Remain voting Tory MP stood on a manifesto at the last election saying they would implement Brexit. If they don't oust her and they allow her not to deliver on Brexit, they all deserve to lose their seats. And so be it, because I think the long-term good of the country is that we trust in democracy, because that is the foundation of everything we have in this country in terms of the pact between the people and politicians, between us, and the police and the army. All the compact that is part of our civil society is based on a trust in democracy. Democracy is the basis of the law and order that we have, that brings the economic goodness and the jobs. If you undermine democracy, you undermine the economy, and you undermine everything that the Remainers say they want.
Isn't the problem for some Brexit voters there is no party that represents them at the moment?
Yeah.
I mean, unless they sort of want to vote UKIP or something. Both Labour and the Conservatives clearly aren't going to deliver Brexit.
They say they're Brexit parties, but they aren't. I still think that the Tory party can be persuaded. I've got a feeling. I was put it this way: on Friday, when the Chequers agreement was announced, and we apparently had this cabinet unity, and I was sending a lot of text messages to Eurosceptics and very senior in the government, like, what the actual? And I have to say, I woke up, I go to bed quite early because I do an early morning talk radio breakfast show, get up at silly o'clock, and I woke up to see David Davis had resigned about an hour after I'd gone to bed, and I was so happy. It was just like, finally, you know what, there's no point being in government if you're not going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. There's no point. He's been sidelined completely by Theresa May and Ollie Robbins, totally fully signed up Europhile advisor on the EU, and then Boris Johnson going as well, a few others. I get the very strong impression that the Jacob Rees-Mogg group of Eurosceptic MPs are biding their time. They are keeping their powder dry. They're going to try and overturn some of these key measures, get Theresa May back to her own policies. They're not actually standing up against Theresa May's policies. They're keeping her to the policies she's announced repeatedly. If she doesn't agree to those, I think they will probably move to get rid of her, because I think they've got no choice.
Yeah. Are you optimistic for a proper Brexit then, with this, with these other resignations and talks of Jacob
proper Brexit. I just want to Brexit. We go hard, soft,
fine.
proper
Brexit.
Brexit. Leaving the EU in everything but name. I'm quite happy. The worst case scenario for a lot of people is no deal and WTA rules. I'm quite happy with that. That's one of my happier options.
Do you see it happening? Because some people are saying the Chequers deal won't last, and Theresa May.
I don't think the Chequers deal will last. I don't think it will be accepted by the EU meaningfully. I think it will get Brexit. It may take longer, but I think we are going to see it, because I think the British people are angry, And you could see from the polls really quickly, within hours of that agreement being published and the white paper, the polls are really clear. People are cross about this. Theresa May was saved by the World Cup. When England was doing well, frankly, I'm sitting there on my show going, this amazing events are happening in the future of our nation, our sovereignty, our democratic accountability. But hey, let's talk about the football, because we were all so excited about it. Yeah. The moment that England left the World Cup, I mean, apart from that game on Saturday that means nothing to anyone, focus went straight back on Brexit and Trump, and then Trump put the focus straight back on Brexit with that Sun interview where he made it quite clear he thinks she's wrecking Brexit, which she is.
So you mentioned the World Cup there, and you also earlier mentioned Jean-Claude Juncker. Now, his sort of main man in Brussels, the chief civil servant, Martin Selmayr, tweeted out some kind of sort of vindictive message after we lost the football. How does that make you feel as a Brexiteer?
Well, I remember just retweeting it and just saying, winning more friends. I mean, this is the thing. There is such a smugness among the European Commission. What I find amazing is just this attitude that sort of, silly Brits, we're going to punish you. Donald Tusk sent out a tweet saying, he regrets, Boris Johnson resigning, he regrets that we're not changing our Brexit policy. Who the hell do you think you are? It's this idea that the British people have got it wrong. Well, that is what the EU thinks. That's what European Union bureaucrats think on their six-figure salaries. Of course they think that. They're on the gravy train. They have always, when there's been a vote, we're Ireland, France, Denmark, you vote the wrong way, we either ignore it or we make you vote again until you vote the right way. They are still in shock that David Cameron gave us the referendum. Of course he only gave it to us because he thought we'd win it, and B, that after he'd lost it, that we haven't either just ignored the outcome or tried to reverse the outcome. They just think that this is insanity because they're not Democrats. They don't believe in the fundamental rule of democracy, which is fascinating because they go on and on about how the EU has saved Europe from another world war. No, it hasn't. Democracy has. Democratic nations don't go to war with each other. They might go to war with other countries, but they don't go to war with each other. And I just find it just depressing that they seem to think they're so much cleverer than us. And I think we see that attitude in the civil servants in Number 10 as well. Yoni Robbins, Theresa May's advisor, stolen from Brexit Secretary David Davis, who apparently is leading on negotiations, shouldn't be led by a civil servant. It should be led by an elected representative of this country. They think they know better than us, and they think that they're going to stop Brexit from happening because they're saving us from ourselves. Silly, ignorant, probably racist voters don't know what they're doing. And it's that patronising attitude which tells you everything.
So it's more of an arrogance from the EU Commission rather than sort of a hatred or sort of.
Yeah, it's arrogant. You've got to remember they're losing one of the big funders of the EU. I mean, they've got a lot of problems coming up. When our money stops, assuming we're going to start paying, not trusting Theresa May on that one yet. Here's 40 billion quid for nothing, no strings attached, which is apparently the current government policy. Once that money's gone, they're going to have to start filling that hole. Some really big coffers. We're paying 12% of the EU budget for years. They're either going to have to cut their budget, well, they've never done that before, or they're going to have to ask other members to start paying up. Now, when a lot of members who were net recipients have to start paying, they might start questioning whether it's worth their while. And when some people who've been paying a heck of a lot of money, like the Germans, might start questioning why they're having to pay more. What are they getting back in return? I think the EU bureaucrats are totally out of touch with the feeling. They keep thinking they've dodged a bullet. Whether it's Angela Merkel remaining as Chancellor despite the rise of the AfD, whether it's in France with the Front National, and Marine Le Pen. They keep thinking they dodged a bullet. Well, they didn't dodge one in Italy when we saw that coalition come to power, and we keep seeing the rise of the Eurosceptic parties who were just saying, we're not entirely sure this is a good deal anymore.
Right. The Sun have made a big splash today where they've done an interview with Donald Trump, an exclusive, and he said that Theresa May is going to wreck Brexit and there's not going to be a US free trade deal. Yeah. Now, I was scrolling on Twitter this morning and someone said, I thought Brown would be the worst Prime Minister in my lifetime. Now I think it's May. What do you think? Is May the worst Prime Minister in your lifetime?
What a choice. I mean, she's kind of got harder things to deal with, I would say, right now. Of course, Gordon Brown had the big economic crisis, didn't he? I mean, Donald Trump's right, isn't he? I mean, no question, she is wrecking Brexit, and good Lord, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump at all, but he may be right on this one thing, that she has done a terrible negotiating job on Brexit, and that he would have got a better deal. I mean, he would have been just saying, we're off, we're out, sod you, no penny. And he certainly wouldn't be offering to send money. I think he would have been the disruptor of the EU in a way that they weren't really quite sure what was going to happen and whether they were going to get a single penny out of us. I think that might have focused EU minds more. But I think the key thing was to have a Prime Minister who had just a bit more belief in what they were doing. And in that respect, I think Gordon Brown probably believed in himself and what he was doing more than Theresa May. I didn't agree with everything he did. Tony Blair was right to keep him out of office as long as he did. But Theresa May, the main thing about her is I don't know what she believes. I don't know what she stands for. I don't know why she's in power. I don't know why does she want to be Prime Minister if she didn't want to deliver what she said she was going to do. At least Gordon Brown actually meant what he did.
So maybe she is the worst Prime Minister in your lifetime.
I'm not a fan of John Major, I've got to be honest.
So Trump obviously is in the UK at the moment, and it's caused a lot of controversy among sort of liberal types.
Yeah, not among everyone else, no.
Your best mate Owen Jones and James O'Brien
Who?
and everyone like that. So what do you say to those sort of protesters out there just down the street, sort of protesting Trump?
Have a shower first of all and keep down. Well, I mean, we live relatively near Regent Park. I have to drive through there. I mean, absolute just chaos around there. Barriers erected days in advance, hundreds of metres away from the American ambassador's residence. Lovely garden, by the way. I went to a lovely party there a couple of weeks ago. I just find it bizarre. Look, the British people don't like Donald Trump. The polling's very clear. They think he's racist. They think he's sexist. They think he's a disruptor. He's not good for peace. They think he's a liar. Yeah, absolutely. Agree with all of that. Wish the Americans hadn't elected him. But the British people, again, were very sensible and sound. He was elected he had a majority of the Electoral College. I don't care about whether or not it was the popular vote or not. He won the election, I believe, fair and square. And he is there elected not just head of government, head of state. And when the head of state of our biggest economic ally and our biggest military ally comes to visit us, our head of government and our head of state, I believe we should show some respect. Doesn't mean you agree with everything someone says. Look, people have got mothers-in-law who they don't agree with, who may trot out some rather unsavoury views about people. Not mine, I'd like to say quickly. But they don't like or agree with everything they say. But you play nicey for the afternoon and you offer them tea. You roll out the red carpet. The Queen gives him tea because that's what she's there for. We only have royalty to do this stuff. And you make nice because we want to do business deals and trade deals. And all this virtual signalling of people sort of letting off big balloons of baby Trump, that is quite funny, and banging drums outside the residence where the president is staying. It's just a way of saying, look at me. It's just another date on the protest calendar. These people, they do they protest everything. They protest the opening of an envelope. These people, they're the opposite, sort of like the Big Brother celebrity type. They will just protest anything to show what wonderful, good people they are. Donald Trump ain't going to take a blind bit of notice of them. It's not going to change a single policy. No migrant child on the Mexican-American border is going to be reunited with their family as a result of what he's done. No policy is going to be changed. No more Muslims are going to get into the US as a result of what they're doing. They're just showing off their own right-on credentials. And frankly, I just find it a bit embarrassing.
Did you see Piers Morgan do an interview with the Trump protester? And it was on Twitter and everything, and she said something like, "I'm a communist, you idiot." What do you think about sort of people who seriously believe that they are communists and believe in that
with their iPhones?
Yes.
Yeah. I just find it extraordinary. There are people can believe whatever they want to believe. You can believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden. That's fine. And you're allowed to protest. And I'm all in favour of people having the right to protest, but do it with some class and some style. Rather than just banging a drum or a big balloon. But it's the idea that in some way he's a bad person. Well, he probably is a bad person, but I'm a good person because I have these left-wing views. This battle between left and right, that if someone stood up in front of a poster of Adolf Hitler or a swastika flag and said, but these are my values, we'd all rightly be horrified. But when someone stands up in front of a hammer and sickle, or shouts about socialist worker or communism or Mao or Lenin, oh, well, you're a good person because these people are responsible for hundreds of millions of people's deaths. Hitler couldn't dream of killing as many people as communism has killed. And it's not when communism goes wrong. It's not when socialism goes wrong that it happens. It is built in. It is part of the point of communism that you will have this level of control and this level of effectively dictatorship that ends up killing people. I just think these people live in a fantasy world. And they don't make it easy for, I think, our government and sensible people, not necessarily saying those are the same things at the moment, to actually make strong arguments and try and persuade, convince people like Donald Trump to do different things on the world stage.
Okay, cool. Let's move back to the protesters, because I don't think you would have seen sort of these virtue signalling protesters maybe sort of 30, 40 years ago, you know, the left-wingers back.
But they were all at Greenham Common then, weren't they?
Well, yeah. And sort of, well, I guess you had the CND and things like that, but you didn't really, you know, the old sort of socialist left in the sort of the 60s, 70s was nothing like the left today. And you've talked to me before, sort of on the interviews that we've done, about sort of my generation not getting enough sex, or like. I
really think you need to get out and have more fun. You're just so miserable.
Why is this? Why are sort of my generation so sort of virtue signalling?
But a lot of people,
in your eyes?
If you look at the demos, a lot of the people are actually sort of middle-aged.
That's true. Yeah.
And an awful lot of it's the usual crowd. This is their social life. They go on protest. That's what they do. I don't know all these people who've randomly got Thursday and Fridays off from work. There's interesting shift patterns people have got that they can go on these demos, but you know, good luck to them. No, but it is part of your generation. You've been sold this sort of this narrative of the left, of Jeremy Corbyn, of socialism and everything, and it's almost like my generation have to educate you all over again about what happened. Hey, I'd be quite happy with the Labour government. I've got no problem. I was very happy with the Lib Dem Tory coalition. I'd be quite happy with the Tory government. Who, if you follow the mandate of the people as given to you and what you expressly stated you do in the manifesto, I'm happy to go along with that. If Jeremy Corbyn's elected, that's fine. But you know what? He can put my taxes up. I'll still be fine. It's the people who probably think he's going to change their lives and make everything equal and wonderful that are going to suffer, because he's just going to make the pie smaller. He's not going to be sharing. You can share it out as equally as you want, but socialism never ends up being that equal. We've seen that in Venezuela. We've seen that in every country in the world. I just wish that the young people who think that, when they say I'm left, well, no, nothing wrong with being left wing, and lots of wonderful values on the left, but that I'm a socialist, I'm a communist. I wish they'd educate themselves about what it actually means in real life for real people, because very few people who've lived under those regimes seem to think they're as good as the people who live under capitalism and long for socialism.
Are you sort of worried, maybe you've got that slight thing at the back of your mind, that maybe your daughter might grow up to be a socialist?
Oh, she's going to end up being full-on Green Party. I absolutely know it. So because
why is that?
You've got to rebel. You've got to rebel against your parents. She's a free thinker. I mean, I've never told her how to think. My husband and I are both sort of true Brexiteers, but but he's come to that view of his own mind as well. And I've always said to her, don't ask me what I think. Go and read up on it, and come back and tell me what you think after you've read some of the facts. Just think, if you look at the facts, then it's all quite clear. I mean, the debate in our politics for so many years, in the post-war years, has been about, this. Everyone says, "Oh, it's boring consensus." No, a consensus that we believe in the NHS, free education, and the nuances of how we run the economy. We're arguing on a really tiny bit of the playing field, and I like that kind of politics, that sort of consensus. But clearly now it's all being shaken up, and everyone is withdrawn. It's that side and that side. I'm all for having that battle of ideas, but it needs to be an honest one based on the facts. Because as opposed to we're good people on the left and they're bad people on the right, I don't think that people who are socialists are bad people. I don't consider myself to be on the right. Loads of people on the right keep telling me I'm a pinko lefty, so because of my support for lots of issues, quite nanny state issues. I think most people aren't either that. They don't really think of themselves like that, and they're just in the middle ground. They just want some sensible policies that make their lives easier, and generally for government to butt the hell out of their lives unless they're needed. And I think this big battle of ideas between left and right needs to be done on facts, not on who's the nicest people, because actually that's not what it's about.
I'm just going to round the interview off with a couple more questions, just back to Brexit, because
we always come back to Brexit.
We have to come back to Brexit because so many people who sort of watch my videos are very, very passionate about it, as am I, and I'm sure as are you. And I feel that, I haven't done this for too long, a few years, and most, I've spoken to Alan Sked the other day, he's founder of UKIP, done it for 30 years of his life, he's put it into this sort of getting us out of the EU. Do you see, and obviously you've done it for a while as well, how do you feel coming out now? Where do you see sort of us going in a direction where it isn't a real Brexit? I know I asked that sort of before, but I just want to get your sort of emotional feelings on this.
I mean, certainly a week ago, I felt it was slipping away.
Yeah.
I felt really upset. I saw the documents, and obviously I get briefings from Number 10, and I'm on private texting terms with a lot of very senior well-known Brexiteers, and there were a lot of F words in our text messages on Friday night. And I've got to be honest with you, I could have cried. I was really close to tears on Friday night that it was all being thrown away. And then as the weekend progressed, I just got angrier and angrier. I do worry it's slipping away, but you know what? The British people, they're always behind. They're always behind doing the right thing. They make the right decisions. The polling is clear. They don't like what Theresa May's doing. They don't support it. The Labour Party don't like it for various reasons. The City doesn't like it for various reasons. Tory backbenchers don't like it for various reasons. The voters are absolutely bleeding furious about it. I don't think that Theresa May can survive and deliver this Brexit. So it's a choice between her surviving and delivering a half-decent Brexit, and then we'll work from there. 30th of March onwards, the real work starts. Or she is going to have to go, and then we start again from scratch. And I'll take a transition period that's a bit longer to have someone in charge who actually is planning to deliver. But yeah, I've got to be honest. For a few days, I thought it was slipping away. But my faith has been restored in the last couple of days that actually the British people aren't going to allow it to slip away. And that's not just Brexiteers like me, the 52%. There are a good sort of another 25% on from there who are uneasy that a democratic mandate hasn't been delivered, because they want their next mandate to be delivered as well.
Is this Chequers deal the biggest betrayal of Brexit voters or British voters in your lifetime?
Yes. Well, that and the Lisbon Agreement, of course, as well, and Maastricht, and betrayal after betrayal after betrayal. But the British people have said enough, and I think they mean it this time. My message to Theresa May and her dear chum Ollie Robbins is, if you ain't going to deliver Brexit, then it's time to, pack up your stuff, call the removal vans, and get the hell out of Number 10, because you've got no business being there. The British people voted in a democratic referendum for democracy to be restored to this country. They wanted to have not a single Prime Minister, not a single Minister who could ever say again, well, we do it, but the EU won't let us. Well, you know what? You can't say that to us about Brexit, because we voted for Brexit, and just because the EU won't let us doesn't mean that you can try and side with the EU and stop us. I think the British people are going to get their way.
Julia Hartley Brewer, thank you so much for doing this interview.